I'm joined by Kayleigh McEnany, Trump 2020 Senior Campaign Advisor. Kayleigh, welcome back to Tampa. I'm Rob Finnerty in Tampa, Florida. I know you're from this area, spent some time at Holy Names. This is a very big day for the Trump campaign, obviously, and the Biden campaign. Closing argument time. I think it's safe to say that what President Trump did in 2016, that was miraculous. I don't think if you asked him 10 years from now if he really expected to win in 2016, he might hedge a little bit. The confidence of the Democrats. Let's remember 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton held a victory party inside a room with a glass ceiling. So what he did was miraculous. If he wins tonight, is this the greatest upset in American presidential politics?
I think that's certainly the case. When you look at the public polling, pollsters are predicting the opposite of what we are predicting here, which is victory for President Trump. And we believe he'll be victorious. Our numbers look good. There's a palpable feeling you get across the country. I've been with him every day for the last 2 weeks. As you mentioned, I'm from Tampa, Florida. I was at that great rally at Raymond James Stadium. And the turnout we see is remarkable. The numbers in Florida in particular are just stunning. The fact that we've won 13 consecutive days of early voting. Republicans normally don't do that. And in particular, Miami-Dade County, where we've outpaced Democrats. That doesn't happen in Miami-Dade County. And I believe the story of this election will be Latino turnout for President Trump.
You brought up polling there, and it's interesting. If President Trump wins tonight, is that the end of the polling industry, with the exception of maybe the Trafalgar poll, which nobody's talked about until the New York Times published something about it today?
Yeah, I think it is the end of the polling industry. Accuracy is important, and there's been wide-ranging polls from showing a 16-point margin in Wisconsin to the next day a poll like Trafalgar showing victory for the president. We know Trafalgar was the only poll to predict a Michigan victory in 2016, and they're predicting it once again now. In fact, they predicted it 5 times. So I do think that the polling industry will have a moment of having to reconcile their methods, the way that they, in some ways, it seems, try to shape public opinion rather than gauge it.
Yeah, I think that it's difficult for them to take into account the human element, which is something that a computer can't collate. You have talked about the enthusiasm. Of course, the crowds we're seeing at these Trump rallies, Raymond James Stadium being a great example, have been right in line with what we've seen throughout his presidency and when he was campaigning in 2015 and 16. A different story from the Biden campaign, which have been a little more subdued. Everyone's in their car. But the folks that are voting for the former vice president still get 1 vote. Enthusiasm doesn't necessarily mean more than 1 vote. Does it worry you that 100 million Americans may have cast their ballots 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, into September?
No, it doesn't. Look, we believe in election day voting. That gives the American people a chance to fully watch the debates, hear the closing arguments, and vote on election day. But look, everyone is saying the fact that we've had historic turnout is somehow a good notion for Democrats. But, we argue here that historic turnout may not look the way it's looked in the past, in that we believe that we've brought new voters into the fold. Our data on Latino voters and Black voters coming to the Republican Party is strong. So we believe that the excess turnout will in fact play in our favor and not follow the traditional pattern where Democrats hope for a high turnout election.
So speaking of the turnout, 29 electoral votes here in Florida. What time tonight? Our polls, we're a little bit in the central time zone up in the Panhandle, so really it's 8 o'clock Eastern. Time tonight, do you think you'll actually have a reasonable idea of whether or not President Trump has taken Florida?
Yeah, I think we'll know very early on. Look, the metrics in Florida are so strong for us, from even the polling, the Trafalgar poll looking very good for us there. But just based on the absentee ballot count and the early vote count, Democrats always lead in absentee ballots. They typically lead in early vote. But what we've seen is each day, at those 13 consecutive days when we've won in Florida, that absentee ballot advantage has been slowly eaten at, to the point where the margin is so much thinner than what it was in 2016. And in fact, thinner than it was in 2018. When we know Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis went on to prevail in the great state of Florida. So we believe we'll win. We believe we'll know very early. Of course, they'll have to take some time to count it, but we are predicting victory in the great state of Florida. And
are you keeping an eye on the bellwether county of Pinellas County?
Absolutely.
It's gone with the president every time except for 2000, so it's so important.
That's right. In fact, just before coming to air with you, I was looking at one of our campaign staffers who was saying, look, we have a 2.5 to 1 advantage in Pinellas County. Looking at that, and also looking at anecdotal stories flooding in from my fellow citizens there in Florida, saying they showed up at
Your friends.
my friends, Exactly. Polling locations in Hernando County where they showed up at 7 a.m. and there were 200 people there in line when they left. Those are Republican voters. We excel at election day voting in person, and a long line on election day bodes very well for President Trump.
I was on the morning show this morning, and I was at a polling location today as well, and there was a good sized line there. So I think there's going to be a good turnout today, probably record numbers across the country. Who knows, maybe 150 million Americans voting in this presidential election. I've heard you mention Joe Biden's basement campaign strategy, especially a few months ago over the summer. And you've intimated during several of your press conferences that he might be in some sort of cognitive decline. Now, the president hasn't jumped on that on the campaign trail, but is that something that you guys are believe in the administration?
Look, first, let me say the campaign has been the one making that case about Joe Biden. And I think, look, the American people can watch and they can see for themselves and ask themselves, is Joe Biden up to the task? And I think the answer is no. I mean, he thinks he's running against George when in fact he's running against Donald Trump. He's made several gaffes. In fact, yesterday, confusing Medicare and Social Security, two key programs for our seniors. He's not up to the task. I think that's very clear. He can't keep up with President Trump. Look, we've been in 34 places in the last few days. And his basement strategy is real. It's been largely hiding in the basement, not having an aggressive campaign schedule. And I can tell you, there's no breaks in the White House. There's no breaks when you're president of the United States. It's around the clock. And so for Joe Biden, I think not having the ability to keep up, that means that Kamala Harris is the president. And that is quite scary because that means the radical left would be ruling the White House.
Do you think that if President Trump does win another 4 years, Dr. Fauci is gone?
I'll leave that to President Trump. No personnel decisions at this point, but President Trump wants the best top medical experts who will make the best decisions for our country at the top. And he has vowed this: no lockdown. You can open up safely with President Trump, or you can lock down immediately with Joe Biden. So he'll have in place experts and doctors who want to reopen the country in a safe and effective manner.
And by the way, the stock market is up today, and I'm not sure if you even know this, but if the stock market is up 200 points on an election day, the incumbent wins. I think it's 94% of the time.
Oh, that's a great new fact.
It's up about 400 points right now, but of course, the day is young. Businesses have been boarding up in many cities across the country. Some have Republican governors, many have Democratic governors. Those cities include New York, Portland, Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, the city of Boston. Is that more of a rebuke on the Trump presidency, or is that an indication of how Democrats are running those cities?
No, it's a rebuke of Democrats. Those are Democrat cities. And here's what the left is basically saying. They're saying, if you don't choose the left's chosen candidate, then the left-wing mob is going to come after you. That is not the way we do democracy here in America. We want law and order and safety. And what the president has done is, when he's been invited to do so, sent in federal assistance to help some of these cities that are chaotic. And he's done so to great effect, just merely offering and the threat of sending in federal officers to the Seattle chop zone ended up whittling down the Seattle chop zone, where two people tragically lost their lives. The biggest tragedy, I think, that unfortunately hasn't been reported by the media this year is the number of young children who have lost their lives in Democrat-run streets that are not secure. That's not what we want to see in this country. The president is the law and order candidate. It's why he's gotten the police endorsement of many thousands of organizations across the country.
But isn't it true the buck stops with the president? Harry Truman said that, even though these are Democratic-run cities, the large majority, it's still a Republican administration that's in Washington. Doesn't the buck stop there?
Well, look, we have a federalist system where the police power, the power to secure the streets, rest with the governors and mayors of these cities. That's the way the Constitution works. And the president, short of calling the Insurrection Act into question, which would be a radical step, the president has offered assistance. So it's incumbent upon governors and mayors to invite that federal assistance where necessary. But I think the president has shown, with D.C. as the model, when he sent in the National Guard, D.C. went from churches burning the night before to safety and security in the streets. And I think that's a choice for the American people to elect Republicans so we can bring security to those cities as well.
What about the Senate? There is a possibility that the Senate turns blue today for the first time in, I think, 6 years. A lot of these races are really close. Lindsey Graham is somebody that might lose his seat. What's the president's thinking there?
So we believe that the president is the ultimate game changer when it comes to lifting down ballot races. So whether it's congressmen or senators, having the president on the ticket's a net positive. It drives supporters to the polls. In 2018, we expanded that majority in the Senate, lost the House, but we believe it would have been a much different scenario if President Trump's name would have been on the ballot. So be it Lindsey Graham or Martha McSally or Joni Ernst, this president's a team player. He campaigns for men and women up and down the ballot. And then we believe that that'll be a game changer when he prevails. So too will those senators.
Susan Collins, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Kayleigh, I don't want to take too much of your time, but this morning the president sort of hinted that there's a possibility of declaring a premature victory. We know that states like Florida count their ballots prior to Election Day. That's going to help those results come out right when those polls close tonight. But states like Pennsylvania, the Secretary of State there said that they might not be done counting by Friday, possibly into early next week. Is there a possibility, or have those conversations taken place? Would the president think of doing something like that were Joe Biden not to call and concede, or would he do that prematurely?
No, we can't predict what would happen, but the president will not declare premature victory. He'll declare a victory when, in fact, he believes the voice of the American people has been accurately and truly encapsulated. And I think Joe Biden should have to answer that question, because we have Hillary Clinton saying that under no circumstance should Joe Biden concede. That was a sentiment that was doubled down upon this morning by a Biden campaign advisor. So we would turn the question back on him.
Do you think we have a president by the time the sun rises tomorrow morning?
We'll see. It's going to be very complicated because of the Pennsylvania ballot situation where they're allowing ballots to come in 3 days later. That's not the way elections work or should work. So it'll be complicated. We'll see what happens, but we certainly are hopeful that there will be no litigation. I believe it will be a President Trump landslide, and we believe the American people deserve to know on election night or in the early morning hours thereafter, just like we've known in really every election in modern history, save Bush v. Gore, which I don't think the country wants to return to that kind of predicament.
No, that was 35 plus days of
Florida
torture.
remembers that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that all roads do go through the I-4 corridor and Florida?
Absolutely. Florida is indispensable to us. We're in a much different place now when we're going into Election Day, believing that Florida is staunchly in our column. So it all run through Florida, and of course the I-4 corridor being central. I'd add into that Miami-Dade with our Latino surge.
All right, Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much for your time. Good luck today.
Thank you.